Good morning.
Good morning.
I think we can do a little bit better than that. Good morning.
Good morning.
I'd like to thank you all for being here today. The weather is cold, but the sun is bright. And we have greeted each other, we have gathered together, and I would like to invite you into a century moment of prayer as we compose ourselves for worship today. Will you pray with me? Gracious and beloved God, we thank you for this time and place where we can gather together, where we can read your word and reflect upon its meaning, where we can pray together and sing together, where we can look up to you. And so, oh God, we ask you to bless this time and space, to fill it with your holy presence, and to pour into our hearts and minds. Help us to see you here, oh God. Help us to feel your presence and to know your word. Bless this time, O God, and make it holy. It is in your name that we have gathered, and in your name that we say, Amen. Amen. Thank you for that gift of music. I'd like to invite you to stand as you are able and join in our call to worship today as led by our liturgist.
O great Creator, who shaped existence and spun the stars in all their radiance, who made us in your image and out of your great love.
We look to the manger and see where you chose to walk with us, our Emmanuel.
O gracious King and Prince of Peace, to whom the nations give service and the needy cry out for aid.
We look to you in the humbleness of our lives and the vastness of our world to lead us with justice and loving kindness.
O merciful Redeemer, who sacrificed for our sake and still moves inside all of us to follow your profound example of love.
We look to you in all the places where we fear the darkness, to guide us evermore to the light. Amen. For our first song today, I invite you to turn to page 98, To God Be the Glory. Life and atonement for sin, and joys and concerns do we have to bring together today as a community of faith?
Had to put Dad in the hospital. He got him in there for observation. He fell last night. They run some tests on him.
Do they know why you fell?
No, and he don't remember it, so.
Um, Thank you for lifting him up for prayer today. Other joys or concerns?
Prayers for Sharon. She's homesick with fever and cold and all that good stuff. I think it's a cold.
Well, hope she feels better.
You know.
I know she'd want to be here today.
Well, and it seems like when she gets sick, she really gets sick.
So let's definitely hold her in our prayers. Other joys or concerns or prayer
I
requests?
have a joy and concern.
Okay.
My joy is, I've talked to my sister Linda and my dad, and they both are doing pretty good. And the concern is we really need to put a lot of prayers in for Karen. She's having a really rough time. She did get where, she didn't have to do the second 2 chemos that she had left, and they were supposed to be doing the surgery on the 25th, and from there they should get radiation, but she is really having a hard time.
Well, I'm really glad to hear the positive update for Linda and for your dad. And let's hold Karen in our prayers. Chemo isn't fun even at the best of times.
And plus she's a real bad diabetic, so that don't help either.
So we'll hold her in our prayers.
Ryan and Aaron, Jamie's dad, is going to be going into the Renaissance, so that's where Aaron works, and she's on a different floor, but that way she can check on him. And he's got to recover and get to walking before they'll let him go home. So, and then when he goes home, I think Aaron's moving there to live with him.
Were they able to figure out what the problem was?
I think it was just that he had a high blood pressure and he fell, and the toxins in his body and stuff. He's got bad arthritis in his backbone, so he's having a hard time getting moving again. They've been giving him some medicine, which they were supposed to not give it anymore because he acts fine when he doesn't have the medicine. And the doctor hasn't quit giving it to him. The nurses keep giving it to him after they say they won't. So they're just going to try to get him out of there.
Well, it sounds like they're on the road towards improving the situation.
Yeah.
So we'll pray for him and for his family and for the boys as they're helping.
Yeah, so I'll pray for the kids to not fight because they've been arguing over a lot of stuff. So.
Oh no, they're teenagers. It's a
No, they're
pretty
not.
big prayer request.
No, not those boys. I'm talking about Mike, Ryan, Aaron. And
Oh, okay.
because they're having to make medical decisions about his animals and where he's living and all that kind of stuff, which disagreeing.
That's a hard place to be and hard decisions to be making. Other prayer requests or joys today?
Violet Wages finally got her hearing aids back. They had them in for repairs before Thanksgiving, so she can hear now.
Excellent. Excellent. That's
Violet
either a
likes-
joy or a whole nother area of concern.
But Violet likes to talk, but when she can't hear you, then she doesn't know what you're saying. She did finally get them back.
That's good. Any more joys or concerns today? Going once.
Oh.
Okay.
Pray for a kid that I work with, who's the kid whose his dad got killed on a motorcycle. His grandpa just died. So he was supposed to be starting a new job and leaving us, but he asked if he could come back to Casey's for a while because he wants to be with friends for a while.
Well, it's good that he has people like you for support. That's a very hard spot to be at. What is his name?
Austin.
Austin? All right. Any more joys or concerns? Then let us be in an attitude of prayer as we lift up to God our joys and our concerns, knowing that whatever we put into His hands will be held safe there. Loving and beloved God, you are our Creator, Redeemer, and Sustainer. You are in all times and all places. You look deep into our hearts, and you see all of the joys and the concerns and all of the prayers that are inscribed there. Today we lift up to you all of the prayers we have spoken aloud, all of the people that we have named here amongst us, all the places where there's homecoming and improvements in health, and all the places where there's hard decisions, fears and challenges, where there's still hospital stays. We look to you, O God, and we lift up to you all of the joys of our lives and all of our concerns. We celebrate the gifts that you have given us and this wonderful world you have made, with the eyes and the minds to appreciate it and the hearts to care for your creation. And out of those hearts that you have given us that celebrate family and friends, we also reach out in concern to not just our family and our friends, but to all of our strangers and associates and even our enemies, as we pray for the entirety of this world. We lift up the people we know are struggling with sickness, injury, and wounds of the heart. But we lift up to you as well every person who is facing those challenges. We lift up to you everyone who is facing strife or conflict, everyone facing fear or anger or hate. We lift up our broken world and all the places where there are struggles. And we put it into your hands, O God. We put our faith and our trust and our love, our fears and our doubts, our hopes and our dreams into your hands, O God, where we know they will be held safe because you love us. And because you love us and because we love you, we pray to you the way we've been taught to pray, saying together, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. So I'm looking out here, and I am not seeing any of the young little folks that might want to come up. So you know what that means, right? You get the vocabulary test. So I have a word for you today. And we're going to see how many people can remember from the previous time I've used this as a vocabulary word, but it's been a while. What does epiphany mean? I'm looking for 3 answers. Any volunteers? Okay, got one.
Sudden realization.
Sudden realization. Excellent. All right, what are 2 more answers?
It's when the kings, wasn't it kings, came to see Jesus.
When the wise men, 3 kings, the Magi came to see Jesus. All right, one more answer. I can randomly call on someone. Just because you point at someone doesn't mean I'm going to randomly call on them. All right, so actually, you guys covered both ends of the spectrum on it already. Epiphany, when we're talking about the word as in the verb, is referring to a sudden realization or a sudden revelation or a moment of clarity. You have an epiphany. To have an epiphany is to have everything suddenly make sense or to have it become clear. We also use epiphany as the word for a particular part of the church year where we are celebrating and remembering the wise men coming to Christ. And it's actually a day of Epiphany, which is the 6th. So it was on Friday. And for anybody who's wondering, how many folks have already taken down their Christmas tree? All right. When after Christmas did you take down your Christmas tree?
I did it the day after.
3 days, the day after. I won the argument in our house, and the tree stayed up until at least after Epiphany. because that's the end of our 12 days of Christmas, and it's the next part of our Bible story, and I'm particular that way. But there's other things we also talk about when we're talking about Epiphany. Because if we look at Epiphany and we see it as the revelation of God through Christ, so that sudden realization, the sudden revelation, you can look at it from the perspective of God revealed himself to us through Christ so that we could have that aha moment about God, who God is, and our relationship with God. But there's another imagery that comes to my mind when I think about the aha moments. And I want you to picture the clouds open and the light streams down and suddenly everything makes sense. Have you ever had that? Probably not so much with the clouds moving and the sun streaming down. Well, we have a wonderful narrative that uses just that imagery of when Christ goes to John the Baptist and gets baptized. And there's that question of, why are you coming to me for baptism? You are the one we should be going to. But in that moment of baptism, when the skies open and the light shines down and God declares to everyone that this is my son with whom I am well pleased, that too is an aha moment. So when we're talking about Epiphany and when we're worshiping today, it's important for me to let you know, because I like it when we have special days, is this is also the day we talk about the baptism of Christ. This is the beginning of the ministry. This is the revelation, the aha moment. So would you like homework? I see a few grins out there. Your homework for this week, should you choose to accept it, is to look for your aha moments. I'm betting if you look for them, you may just experience one during this week. And sometimes those aha moments can be really simple and easy. Sometimes they are profound and life-changing. Sometimes you get it when you're reading the Bible, sometimes when you're talking to a friend. I have no idea what your aha moment might be this week. But I want you to be looking for it. Because sometimes they happen around us and we don't even notice. And when we're talking today about the Magi coming to visit Christ, I want you to think about just how many people might have seen that star in the sky and had no idea what it would have meant or reacted to it differently, how something as great and magnificent and wonderful of a revelation that was happening, so many people didn't even know. So that's your homework. You don't have to write it down and you don't have to turn it in. But I would like you to pray with me. Wondrous God, you have revealed yourself to us through Christ. Help us to reveal Christ to the world through the way that we live our lives. Amen. For our gospel lesson today, the reading is coming from the book of Matthew, chapter 2, verses 1 through 12. And I invite you to read along if you would like on page 1497 through 98 in the Pew Bible.
After Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea during the time of King Herod, Magi from the east came to Jerusalem and asked, "Where is the one who has been born King of the Jews? We saw his star in the east and have come to worship him." When King Herod heard this, he was disturbed, and all of Jerusalem with him. When he had called together all the people's chief priests and teachers of the law, he asked them where the Christ was to be born. "In Bethlehem in Judea," they replied, "for this is what the prophet has written. But you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah. For out of you will come a ruler who will be the shepherd of the people of my people Israel. Then Herod called the Magi secretly and found out from them the exact time the star appeared. He sent them to Bethlehem and said, "Go and make a careful search for the child. As soon as you find him, report to me, so I may go and worship him." After they had heard the king, they went on their way, and the star they had seen in the east went ahead of them until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were overjoyed. On coming to the house, they saw the child with his mother Mary, and they bowed down and worshipped him. Then they opened their treasures and presented him with gifts of gold and incense and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to go back to Herod, they returned to their country by another route.
The word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God. So there's a joke that has a tendency to come to my mind when I start thinking about the three wise men. And the joke starts off talking about how if it had been three wise women, the story would have ended differently. And if it was three wise women, they would have stopped for directions, gotten there on time, and come bearing diapers, formula, and casserole for 3 weeks. It's a little bit of an amusing joke. It plays on certain expectations about what would be useful for a new family, and also, some rather biased opinions about how men and women differ. And the more I think about that joke, the more I feel I need to point out that not only are men just as capable of asking for directions and just as capable of bringing practical gifts, but that in point of fact, the wise men did stop to ask for directions. That's actually the core of this narrative in the text today, is that they stopped and asked in the logical place, which is where the king resides, where they were going to find the newborn king. And the gifts that they brought were in fact fairly practical gifts. Gold, frankincense, and myrrh are rich and useful gifts that, more importantly, are easy to transport and don't spoil. And when you're going on an adventure, you don't know where you're going or how long it's going to take, I can think of worse things to bring than effectively money that can be used in any nation you're going to, hence gold, and frankincense and myrrh, which had a wide variety of religious and medicinal purposes. So I don't want to give these guys a bad rap. They did ask for directions, they did bring practical gifts, and they did make a timely appearance as guided by their star. So the wise men came from the east, and they came to Jerusalem looking, and they asked, "Where is the child who's been born King of the Jews?" And King Herod heard this, and he was disturbed. That's actually one of my favorite words out of this text, is that he was disturbed. Depending on the translation, if you read it in the NIV, it's disturbed. If you read it in the New King James, it's troubled. Some versions say he was frightened. One even says he was terrified. But I like disturbed. So when you're frightened or you are terrified, that implies almost an inability to act. When you get so frightened you don't know what to do. When you're troubled, I pictured being anxious, looking out the window, having doubts and fears and wondering what to do. But disturbed to me is an active word. Disturbed means wandering around feeling uncomfortable, restless, worried. It implies latent action that is going to take place. When you are disturbed, you want to do something about that feeling. King Herod was disturbed, and so was Jerusalem. You see, the problem here is that the wise men came looking for the newborn King of the Jews, and there already is a King of the Jews. Because here is King Herod, and here in his city, and not only would a new challenger be a threat to him, to his reign, his control, his life, his family, his heirs. But it also could be a very real threat to whatever peace Jerusalem had managed to find in its relationship with Rome. Herod was the king who cooperated with Rome. He was the one who managed to make great plans for improving the temple and to keep the gods of Rome out of the temple. But he was certainly a sympathizer with Rome and cooperated with them. When you start hearing about a new king or a new threat, whatever peace you have suddenly becomes disrupted. The peace, the calm, is disturbed. There's movement. And so he talks to the wise men, and he tells them once they find the child to come back so that he can go and worship this newborn king as well. And as the wise men are later warned, they don't go back, as his intentions are, let's say, less than kind. This is a rather significant challenge facing the newborn king. This is a fairly significant problem potentially facing he and his family, as well as a potential disruption to whatever the standard is in Jerusalem at that time. And we know that King Herod was disturbed. But it makes me ask, how do we react when we are frightened, troubled, and disturbed by the things in our lives? Even the things that have the potential to be good things in our lives. Sudden changes, or even sudden changes we were looking forward to with expectation. When they arrive, our calm is disturbed. There is a latent call to action. Even the best of people can struggle with that fear of what do I do when my whole world is changing. But if we look at it and we see King Herod, we know that he was probably not described as even the best of people. He's part of this status quo, the people who are benefiting from the world being the way it is at that time. And let me tell you, there's plenty of folks in our world today who benefit from the world being just the way it is right now, and we don't want it to change. Thank you very much. In fact, one of the fundamental principles of sociology is that people in power seek to remain in power. The King Herods of our day would see a new interruption, a disturbance that needs to be quelled, a problem to be solved, something to be stopped and acted against. And the stars that shine in the sky and indicate grand new change and the fulfilling of a messianic promise are bound to feel uncomfortable and troubling to the people who don't want the world to change at all. The people who worry about, say, when Christ comes again, and what that is going to mean to their lives. And I would speculate that we probably feel a little uncomfortable and troubled in our own everyday life when we think about that. It's easy for us to pray and reflect and be looking forward to when the kingdom of God comes. But the honest truth is that when it does, everything we know is going to be disrupted. Our everyday life, the places where we're comfortable, where we have our patterns, where we have the behaviors that we've been doing for years and plan to do for decades, all of them would come to an abrupt interruption. And everything that we know and everything we do would become different. The moment when we know that God loves us was a moment of revelation in our lives, a moment of transformation where we can't live our lives the way it was. Imagining that happening again can be a source of anxiety. But here in the text, there's a great deal of grace to help us in facing the times of troubled disturbance. Because if we look at how the wise men reacted to the star, and to the promise that it represented, and to all the prophecies that they were encountering, even though they weren't even followers of our God. They were pagan astrologers. They were from a distant land, a different place. They aren't part of the Abrahamic covenant. Yet they saw the star and they said that the king was born. And they came to worship and they came in joy. They packed up, they loaded up, they headed out to who knows where with no idea of how long it might take them. If you want to talk about disturbing the status quo of their lives, it's a little hard to get more disruptive to your daily grind than to go on a long extended vacation looking for the child that means a change to everything. But they went with joy. They may have been troubled. We don't know. But we are told that when they found Christ, there was joy there. And that star that led them, that reveals the ruler who will shepherd Israel. The Christ that will bring in a new era. The child that is a threat to King Herod. An infant in his mother's arms. It shows us a child who was born in poverty, obscurity, and danger, where the sign that announced his birth was a star in the sky. But so many people didn't see what it meant. And who would go looking for a king in a manger? We sing songs around Christmas, and we sing songs around Epiphany, and we sing "We Three Kings of Orient Are," and we lift up about God and King and sacrifice, right in the wake of telling the story about the birth of our Messiah. But those terms of God and King and sacrifice, they're pointing us towards Easter. They're talking about not just a child is born who will be king, but God made manifest in revelation to us, and the intended sacrifice and offering that he will do for our saving and the fulfillment of the promises made. God and King and sacrifice. You'll notice that terminology isn't in Matthew. That's a meaning we have applied to this reading over the years. When we look at it, and we don't just say 3 wise men. In fact, it doesn't actually tell us 3. So it says magi and wise men, and we say 3. And then later we say 3 kings. And we evoke this imagery to help us interact with this troubling and perhaps disturbing realization that when God the Almighty, creator of heaven and earth, came to reveal himself to us, it was in the fragile infant form. And then you can start to think about how things like gold could help to pay to support a family that has to flee Judea because King Herod is a threat to their child and to their lives. And you can start thinking about how frankincense and myrrh were well valued because of not just their religious value, but their medicinal value. And this is akin to bringing medical care for the mother who just had a baby in the stable. We can look at this story and we can look for the places where it makes us uncomfortable and see in there a God who so loved the earth that he sent his only son to live and die for us. That this King of the Jews isn't the one coming at the head of an army to conquer the city over the bodies of Herod and his sons. But instead our Savior is born to us as a baby, vulnerable and small, in danger from those who fear what the Messiah might bring. And he lives his life in that uncomfortable, disturbed space of potential violence. As he walks and teaches, as he grows and leads throughout Galilee and Judea, when he follows the hard, complicated, and dangerous path to Jerusalem, knowing what Jerusalem does to its prophets. And when he follows it up onto a hill, where again we have the imagery of God and King and sacrifice. But instead of a crown of gold, we picture a crown of thorns. And instead of frankincense and myrrh, we picture bitter gall and an empty tomb. It's uncomfortable. It ought to make us feel disturbed and drive us to action. Because here's the lesson here. Christmas is over. It's about time to take down your Christmas trees. Epiphany is here. The revelation is before us, and we can dwell on the comfortable, safe songs of Christmas, or we can be reaching towards the uncomfortable and disturbing songs of Lent and Easter, where God and King and sacrifice are both comforting and disturbing. And we can follow this journey, and we can remember the price that was paid and the revelation and the relationship. And we can look at it and we can say over and over, this is our God who so loves us. This is the good news. This is the revelation, that he not just came to save, but as this text, with these foreigners from a foreign land, reminds us he came to save all of us. That the Messiah and the star and all of it are not just for those who've heard the word over and over, but for everyone who looks and is willing to follow. And we can disturb the people around us. I assure you, it's something we are fully capable of doing, because when we spread the good news, when we live our lives in such a way that caring for the least among us is more important than whether or not we offend the most powerful amongst us. When we behave in that disturbance, whether it's a wise thing to do or not, it is a way that we reveal to everyone the God that we adore, the God that we go with joy in search of. And so in that sense, being disturbed is like throwing a rock into the middle of a pond that has been still. The ripples show what else is in the water. We get to be a rock. That's kind of a cool thing to get to be. So when you're feeling troubled and you're feeling disturbed, remember that you weren't alone. And look with joy to the source of our salvation, because his revelation is very, very good news. So I'd like to invite you to sing with me the first Noel, which can be found on page 245 as our offertory hymn today. Gracious and beloved God, we give you thanks for all the blessings that you have given us, and out of the abundance upon which you have graced us, We give back of our time and our presence with one another, of our gifts and our talents and our offering, of our prayer, our praise, and our song, for the making of disciples of Jesus Christ, and for the transformation of the world as we strive to live his perfect love. In you, O God, all things are possible. Amen. All right, who's feeling young at heart for the penny parade?
Okay, good.
Excellent. How old are you feeling today?
Always feeling like under 16 now.
Under 16, okay. I'm a big fan of 12. That was a very fun age. So as we're doing the penny parade, look at our announcements. For January, we are collecting pantry items of giver's choice. So it's whatever you'd like to give. We have the Administrative Council meeting on the 17th at 6 p.m. We've got on the 15th is Human Relations Sunday, so that's coming up. And on the 29th is the District Leadership Equipping event at Crossroads UMC. I'm planning to go, and I'm hoping to see more of you there. The online registration is available. Then we've also got camping brochures for 2017 on the back table, as well as greeter and liturgist sign up. It's an excellent way to get to be involved in the service. And the upper room is also available on the back table. Are there any other announcements? All right, let's make a joyful noise. Excellent, thank you very much. So I could make a joke and say, I'm sure none of you saw this coming, but I'd like to invite you to our closing hymn today, We Three Kings, which can be found on page 254.
Worshiping God.
made us of one blood all nations, and by a star in the east revealed to all peoples him whose name is Emmanuel. Enable us who know your presence with us to proclaim his unsearchable riches, that all may come into the light and bow before the brightness of his rising. We ask you, O God, to bless us as we go forth from this place. Help us to shine with your light so that the world may see the glow. Help us to live our lives in such a way as your presence is felt. Bless us as we go forth from here, and help us to remember that a church is a people and not just a place, and that the whole world is your parish. It is in your name that we have gathered, in your name that we have prayed, and in your name that we go forth. Amen.